Good morning, welcome back. We are going to do a full June garden tour this morning. I think it's been about exactly 4 months since we have been out in the garden and I've shown you how everything is doing. So I figured before we head down there, I'm going to first show you this green stalk. So this is a green stalk that we planted together that were bare roots. Probably, I want to say it was like the beginning of May, and it is looking fantastic. I got these roots from my gardener and it's just starting to put flowers on. We have one funny looking strawberry right here and it's actually setting off runners. So I had about 3 die. So as these grow, I'm going to go ahead and root them out in these boxes that died, and I'm going to continue to harvest the runners because my goal is to eventually be able to harvest enough strawberries for us to enjoy homemade strawberry jam from our own property for the whole entire year. Here's another one. These were the strawberry plants that I had transplanted from the previous owner. And because these are more established strawberry plants, this is so fun. These are the first nasturtium flowers. Here's another bud. These were not here yesterday, blooming. Now we have not gotten enough strawberries to bring inside and do anything with because they get eaten before they can be turned into jam or washed and frozen for later use. And that is okay. So this is my other green stalk here. I cannot believe how full this one is getting. These are the petunias I purchased at my local greenhouse and I am loving it. In another probably 3 weeks, we will no longer be able to see any of the planter. It'll just be filled with flowers. I've only fertilized that with a liquid fertilizer once. I'm probably gonna do that this afternoon. So now we're gonna head to this other one. This is the green stalk that were bare roots as well. And we're getting about 5 or 6 strawberries off this green stalk every day. So again, not enough to put up, but enough to have fresh fruit and enjoy. And this one, I cannot believe how well it's doing. This is the one that I started all of these plants myself back in, I want to say February. And one thing I did not realize with this planter is that it's red, white, and blue. And probably come the 4th of July, in just a few weeks, this will be full and will be full of red, white, and blue flowers. So this was kind of fun. So you can see the difference between the one I started and the one where I purchased the starts from the local nursery. This one is not quite as full, but it's about to have tons of blooms on it. And it's just taking a little bit longer because I started them myself. But I think it's super fun. I'm very proud of this planter because so much effort went into this planter. So I'm gonna go set these down. It's been so fun being able to just come out here and enjoy fresh fruit on the patio. It's kind of a morning ritual we do as we come out, we have coffee and we find as many strawberries as we can. And we usually get about 10 a day. And 2 of the planters, like this one, 90% of the plants haven't even started producing fruit yet. So hopefully it's gonna just start exploding here pretty soon. Here is another really good example where this bare root did not make it, but this strawberry plant is producing a baby plant. So I just set this baby plant in here. I'm gonna put a little stake in here to hold it down, but that will go ahead and root out right there and we'll get another little plant there. So that experiment is going really, really well. I cannot wait to see once those 3 planters are in full production how many strawberries we'll get and if we'll start getting enough that we can actually put up. But because I didn't think we would get near enough to put up this year, I did go ahead and buy 2 flats of strawberries from some local farmers so we can put up some strawberry jam. So we're gonna start at the opposite end we did last time and we're gonna go through the garden, end up by the bees, and I'm gonna show you the wildflower patch that we planted and I can show you how that's doing. But here is our first bed. Oh, I did wanna say that last time we were in the garden, there were a lot of things that were starting to die or had died, and we had a lot of kind of, not failures, but things that just weren't working out very well. I'm gonna get over here in the shade. And now at this point, things have absolutely exploded. I had replanted quite a few things. I talked you through what we were going to replant. I replanted, and at this point, things are just exploding and it's looking fantastic. This first bed right here are scarlet runner beans in the back, and they are about 2 feet tall now at this point. We have peppers in the inside. We have our 2 eggplants and some flowers and radishes. And these pepper plants are looking great. I'm starting to see lots of buds throughout the garden. I'm gonna show you where some of the peppers are. Oh my goodness, okay. I was gonna say, these are the banana peppers. They're a sweet banana pepper, and we have quite a few peppers on some of these plants, which is fun. And then I had, where to go? Right in here, these are some volunteer snapdragons. I don't know if, yeah, these are volunteer snapdragons. So I'm just gonna let those grow, and we're gonna see what's gonna happen with those. And at the very end of this bed, right next to the banana peppers, I had planted some more little pumpkins, and those are now just growing. These are gonna be decorative pumpkins, hopefully, that we'll decorate this fall with, and another little volunteer snapdragon. So I'm really excited about the scarlet runner beans because I think that's just gonna be so beautiful when that fills out that trellis. So this bed right here, we had a lot of failures in this bed when we were out here last time. This is a cut flower bed. The front half of this bed right along here is eucalyptus. And I have to say, I'm growing 3 varieties of eucalyptus this year. This variety right here is a brand new variety. This is bookleaf eucalyptus. This variety is the same variety I grew last year, and it is doing absolutely fantastic. It's silver dollar, and that is probably the only eucalyptus I'm gonna grow next year because I can already tell it does a lot better than this one as well. I guess we'll have to make our final conclusion at the end of the growing season, but this is baby blue eucalyptus. Eucalyptus has a slow start, but it does start to take off, and I will use that as a filler in my bouquets this summer. Now on the inside here, this is where we had a big failure. I had planted zinnias that I got from Floret, precious metal, and they all died. So I went online, I ordered 1 more seed pack, I planted them, and they are starting to pop up. And so not too long, we will have some more zinnias that we'll be able to cut from this coming summer. And then in the back, that is cosmos. Those are flowers. I've got a couple different colors, and those are going bananas. Now here is where we have some sweet peas, and these are slow to start. I'm surprised how slow these take to grow. I need to trellis these up. We've got sweet peas in a couple different areas, and these ones are just a little slow to start, so I need to get out here and give them some liquid fertilizer, I think. This is my first time growing sweet peas, so I don't know if that's normal for sweet peas to kind of have a slow start. So we're just going with it, and I'm happy to see any sort of progress. Now this bed here, the front half is onions and the back half are sweet peas. The back half sweet pea variety is called Lincoln. And this is the first time I'm growing this variety, and it's definitely been a little bit slower to come on than the other variety. And I just harvested the first one with you from this variety, and let's go ahead and give it a try. It's good. I don't know if I'm gonna grow that variety again next year just because it's so slow compared to my other variety, and I'll show you that when we get to it, but it tastes delicious. And then down here, the onions, they're going crazy. I had a volunteer calendula flower, and I'm just letting that grow. The celery is looking fantastic, and the celeriac is looking fantastic. And this is what I wanted to show you over here. This is my sage plant that I planted last year, and it just exploded with these beautiful purple flowers. And the honeybees, our honeybees, the wild pollinators, and the bumblebees have been loving, there's one of our honeybees right there, have been loving this sage plant. I don't think my sage at my last house ever flowered like this before. This was just a little tiny plant that I planted last year, and it has exploded. I'm gonna leave it here all for the rest of the summer, but I think in the fall, I'll probably end up transplanting that up into my landscape around the house just for easy harvest. Now this bed, This is where we had some big flops. This bed is a pumpkin bed and winter squash bed. This bed is taking a little bit longer to take off than my other pumpkin bed, which we'll get to in just a bit. But one thing I do almost every day as I come out here, as these plants are growing, is I'm working on training them to grow out of the bed so that they don't take up more space in the bed than they need, and they're gonna grow out into this walkway. So another example, this one is growing in the bed. I'm just gonna pick this plant up and gently encourage it to start growing out of the bed. But here you can see my second planting of pumpkins, and they're just starting to take off, and soon enough they will be completely filled out this bed and you won't be able to see any more of the soil. Here are the pumpkins that I'm hopefully going to start trellising up this trellis soon. I've never had very good success getting anything to trellis up these trellises. So I did go when I was at the farmer's market and I bought a couple tomato plants, and we are actually getting our first tomato fruit from these plants. And I have seen people online who have had beautiful trellises of cherry tomatoes. So I'm gonna see if I can get these cherry tomatoes to grow almost to the top of this trellis. If my dream comes to fruition, I'm not exactly sure how I'll harvest those cherry tomatoes, but I'll worry about that when that happens. I would just love to see it. Now this bed is blowing my expectations out of the water. This is the black bean bed. We had a couple of anemone flowers. Those are the last of the anemone flowers. It's getting a little too warm for them. But these black bean plants look absolutely incredible. I heavily seeded this bed. I probably planted twice as many seeds as I did last year in this one amount of space, and I was a little worried that maybe I was a little heavy-handed, but I don't think so. These plants look incredible. They look way better than they did last year. I think from the compost and the blood meal that I put down, because I am thrilled with how green and lush these plants are. It's only gonna be probably a week or two, and they will start setting buds. You can see here, that's where the start of them are going to happen, and they just look absolutely incredible. This one bed right here is gonna be enough black beans for a year's worth for Josh and I just have had so much fun growing black beans that I can't wait to be able to harvest these this year. I had transplanted on the back side of this bed some sunflowers that were volunteers in this bed, and they are looking really good. They're gonna be small sunflowers because they're so closely planted together. And here are the cosmos, which is what I want. I want nice small sunflowers because I think they're cute and I don't need a huge sunflower taking over this space. That is a trick I learned from Nicole at Flower Hill Farm, that the closer you plant your sunflowers, the smaller they'll be, and that is exactly what's gonna happen here, and I cannot wait to see those bloom. So this bed right here is where I had my peanuts on this end, and those died in the cold, but I replanted some green beans and they're looking great. These are jade green beans. We had a couple kind of spotty germination, so I went ahead and I put some more seed down there. And then the dahlias are just looking absolutely incredible. It looks like this right here just might be one of our first flowers to bloom. We've got a couple buds on a couple of these plants. And in between these dahlias, I came out here one day and I just threw in some calendula seeds and some sunflower seeds. So in between each row of dahlia, here are some more sunflowers in here. These are more calendula, sunflowers, calendula. They're a little bit crowded out, but I think that they will be able to grow through these dahlias. Sunflowers, and then our green beans. I'm hoping that the sunflowers will just pop up right through those dahlias. The dahlias will create beautiful flowers, and the calendula will pop up through, and this will just be one beautiful bed of color with green beans on the end and cilantro on this edge. I have been able to harvest cilantro out of this bed 3 or 4 times now at this point. We've done it twice together, and I am getting an incredible amount of cilantro, and it's been so incredibly fun. from the dahlia bed, we're gonna come up to this Roma tomato bed. And I need to get some tomato cages for these tomatoes. We were out here the other day and I put tomato cages on some of the Roma tomato plants in the other bed, but I ran out and I haven't gone to town yet to pick up a few more cages, but these plants are looking so beautiful. And a few of you guys were worried that these plants in here were weeds. When we were out here, those are not weeds, those are status flowers. So I'm hoping that the flowers pop up in between, because they will get tall, they'll get probably this tall through the tomatoes. And then we did plant out here some cucumber plants, and I don't see any of those germinating yet. But one thing I just noticed out of the corner of my eye is we are starting to get some of our first flowers on these Roma tomato plants, which is going to be really fun. And then on the end of this bed, we have the trellis that has the sweet peas from the cut flower bed. And I had planted some beans that are supposed to have a beautiful flower, and they didn't really germinate. So I threw in 2 more cherry tomato plants here, and I'm hoping that those will grow up nicely on this trellis. So from this bed, the Roma bed, we're gonna go up to one of my favorite beds I've ever grown in any garden, and that is my snapdragon bed. I cannot believe how beautiful this bed has turned out. It has exploded. I have harvested, I don't even know, probably 10 bouquets out of this bed for not only myself, but I've also been able to gift so many. Along the back side of my snapdragon bed is where I have my slicing tomato varieties. These are all heirloom tomato varieties, and they are looking fantastic. You can see some of them are already starting to grow up through my trellis, which is great. I was a little worried for a minute that maybe the snapdragons were going to shade out my tomatoes a little bit, but it does not seem to be a problem. You can see my tomatoes are along this back edge. It's not going to be long before they're tall, and the snapdragons are not going to be a problem. So I just think this is so beautiful. The only thing that I did probably backwards, which I didn't know because I've never done this type of bed before, is the front has the taller varieties and the back has the shorter variety of snapdragon, which I'm gonna note for next year. So if I do this again, I would just rotate it and I would put the shorter ones in front and the taller varieties in the back. But it does not seem to be too big of a problem. So moving on to this bed, this has been kind of my fun bed that's been giving me lots of unique challenges. So over here, we have some status flower, and then we have radishes in between our sweet potatoes. They are looking pretty good. Sweet potatoes always look really, really bad when you first put them in the ground, and then I'm hoping they're gonna start taking off now that the weather has shifted for us, and it's going to be getting very, very hot. Here is dill. We have more green beans. I had kind of spotty germination, and then some of the slugs kind of were eating them, so I replanted a few. This is carrots here, and then we have some more flowers at the end with some pumpkins. It looks like I just got one of my pumpkins to germinate, which is really fun. This is my only cabbage plant that survived the slugs, and I am happy with that cabbage plant. Many of you recommended for my slug problem that I'm having, in particularly in this bed, sluggo and eggshells and beer. So I'm going into town probably today or tomorrow to get some more tomato cages, and I will be picking up some sluggo, and I will do a little bit more research on the beer, but I think you just need to put a little container of beer in your bed. The slugs are attracted to it, they eat it, and then they pass away. So I'm gonna do a little bit more research on that, and then eggshells are supposed to be crushed up, and it's supposed to help prevent the slugs wanting to go over the eggshells. I don't have that many eggshells right now because I give my eggshells to my chickens. So if I do that method, I'm gonna have to start saving up some eggshells, but I appreciate your input on how to prevent my slug issue that I've been having. Along the back side of this bed, we have pinto beans, and those are looking really good. They have not reached the trellis yet, but I don't think it's gonna be too long before they start to take off and are going to be up at the trellis. And then in here we have the one lonely cauliflower plant that survived the one that I purchased. And then over here, that is a cauliflower plant I started myself back in February, I think. I am not sure if I'm gonna be trying to grow cabbage and cauliflower again next year, because I've never had good success. My first year gardening, I grew the most beautiful cabbages. They were stunning and beautiful. And I have not been able to redo that. I don't know what I did differently that first year to have these huge, beautiful cabbage heads. But since that first year, I've only ever gotten little cabbages, tiny little cauliflower. They take up a lot of space in my garden. So I'm gonna have to think about that for next year if I want to plant a bunch of cauliflower and cabbage in my garden next year. One thing I do know is I will always have potatoes in my garden. These are looking absolutely fantastic. I'm seeing the first set of flowers on here, which means when potatoes flower, they are starting to produce tubers in the ground, and they have just flourished and look fantastic. So that hopefully is going to be a nice harvest for us. And that's when that is what is in that entire bed. And along the edge, I had planted some nasturtiums, but they got a little shaded out from the potatoes. So they might flower, but they also might just kind of hang out there, and that's just fine. From the potatoes, we have this bed. This bed is so fun. I've been so enjoying this bed. The first thing over here is we have these orange ranunculus. Ranunculus are a cold weather flower, and I have just been letting these blooms hang out in the garden. They are probably in the next week, I'll come through and cut these back and plant something else here, but they were so stunning when they were in full bloom. I still think they're pretty, even though they have seen a better day. I've just been enjoying them, so I'm letting them hang out here. I will be planting a lot more ranunculus this next year. This is the first time I'm growing this variety of flower. Along the back, we have black beans. Those are looking fantastic. Those are a pole bean variety versus the black beans that I have in that bed. That is a bush bean variety. So these ones, look at this. We're starting to get some vining on these plants. So those are gonna start growing up the trellis pretty quickly. And then, oh my goodness. Well, let me show you this first. We have pinto beans back there. On the inside of this bed is where I have peppers, and then I have nasturtiums on this side. I planted these nasturtiums the same day I planted the nasturtiums on this potato bed, and you can see the difference. These ones are getting a lot more sun, and they have exploded. And on the inside where I've got these pepper plants, now these nasturtiums are starting to shade out some of these peppers, which isn't great, but it looks like we're still getting some Anaheim peppers on here. I did plant some carrots between these pepper plants. I planted some lettuce between these pepper plants, and it looks like I'm getting the first shishito peppers. I think I can actually harvest these. I think these are actually ready for harvest. So these are the first shishito peppers, or the first peppers of this growing year. I'll probably make these for breakfast. And then on the end of this pepper bed, we've got more ranunculus. These are a pink variety of ranunculus, and these ones are almost done as well. I'm just gonna let them hang out here. I won't harvest any of these to bring inside for bouquets, because at this point they definitely are kind of at the end of their life. They won't have any vase life if I cut them and bring them inside. The petals will all drop, so I can just enjoy them for a longer time out here and just enjoy that little pop of color. The final bed in this row is the garlic bed, and it is looking fantastic. It is most definitely the best looking garlic I have ever grown. At this end of the bed, this is a volunteer potato plant. So I had leeks and shallots in this end of the bed. I have just let this potato, it's probably a few potato plants, kind of take over this bed, and that'll be fun to harvest when we harvest the other potatoes. I have already harvested the garlic scapes from my hardneck variety, and I went ahead and I preserved that, and that's ready to use in my cooking for the next few months. And now I can go ahead and harvest this one garlic scape from this elephant garlic. This one was not ready for harvest when I harvested the rest of them, but now it is, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab this one. A few of you guys were concerned that I had left this behind, but it is because elephant garlic takes longer to grow than other garlic varieties. And here is, and put her on my dahlias, because one of my dahlias, I saw some aphids on it. and that's what ladybugs eat. The only other pest that I've been struggling with this year are aphids, other than slugs. And I've been having aphids on my dahlias. That's the only thing that they're attacking in my garden. I don't know if that's normal because this is the first time I'm growing dahlias. Normally, the only plants I get aphids on are kales, but I didn't plant any kale in my garden this year. And so a natural predator to aphids are ladybugs. So I just put that on there. The way that I have been combating the aphid issue is I just mix up some soapy water in a bottle of water. I spray it on the dahlias, I let it sit, and then I just wash it off, and that takes care of the aphids. It's kind of an easy fix for aphids. At least in my area, that's what I do. This bed is so fun. This, my friend, is our wheat bed, and I cannot believe how much it has grown in about 4 weeks since last time we were out here together. It is still yet to be determined if this is going to be just a fun experiment that's going to produce nothing, or if it is going to be something that I'll want to do in the future and maybe, you know, section off a huge part of the field out there for wheat. But right now it's just a fun experiment. I can't tell you how much joy this silly little wheat bed is bringing me. I have just thoroughly enjoyed watching this grow. And so even if I don't get any wheat to actually harvest and then bring it inside and mill it and turn it into bread, this has been a success because it's been so fun to watch grow. For me, gardening is all about trying new things, growing yummy, delicious food, but also I'm enjoying this year just trying new things and experimenting, and not only growing for food, but for beauty and just for pure enjoyment. And that is what this wheat is bringing me, is just a lot of joy. So we're gonna let that just hang out there. We're gonna come to this bed here. The 2 zucchinis that I planted as a third planting are looking fantastic. It won't be long before we have zucchini to harvest. This is my second dahlia bed. Now this dahlia bed is not doing as well as the last dahlia bed. You can actually see a lot more soil in this bed because these plants have not taken off quite as quickly as the last ones. In here I have calendula. So I did the same thing in this bed. In between the dahlias, I planted calendula and sunflowers. And you can see a lot better in this bed where the calendula and where the sunflowers are. It looks like I didn't have very good germination on sunflowers in this bed, but we did get a lot of calendula flowers, so that's great. And then more zucchini over here that are looking fantastic. So gardening is for someone who is persistent. I had my zucchinis die 2 times. The first time I planted them out too soon and it got too cold. The second time I planted them out, they got eaten by birds because I decided to direct sow. And then I went ahead and started some inside again, and I was able to transplant them and they look fantastic. So if I had given up on the first or second try, I would not have zucchini in my garden thriving, but I didn't give up. So now I have 4 zucchini plants. Actually, I have 6, but I'll show you where these other ones are. I think both of them are actually in this bed here. This is my second Roma bed. This is where we're gonna be harvesting tomatoes to make sauces. And you can see I put some tomato cages around these plants, but I ran out, so I need to go to the store and get some more for this one. On the edge here, I planted another succession of cilantro, and that is starting to come up. I had an extra zucchini plant, so I plopped it right here. In between these Roma plants, I planted basil, lettuce on both sides of this bed. And the inside, these are the zinnias that I had saved the seed from last year, and they're looking fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and top that one to encourage it to bush out like this one. And then over here we have sweet peas, and I have sweet peas there and here. And it's so interesting to me because the sweet peas on this trellis, I have sweet peas planted in 4 areas. They are 4 times the size as the sweet peas over there, and the sweet peas that I have all the way on that other trellis over there. So I am not sure why, because everything is pretty much the same in each one of the beds except for the water. Each one of my beds, the water is a little bit different and the irrigation is set up a little bit different. Because I had the landscape fabric in these beds, Josh had set up the water to be custom per bed. And so I think that this bed on this end is not getting the same amount of water as it is on that bed. And that's why the sweet peas over there are looking a lot better over here. That's the only thing I can think. Josh's plan is to get out here and actually set up all the beds to be like that bed. That bed is a misting system, so the entire bed gets saturated, versus this bed and some of the other beds, it's a dripping system, and so the whole bed doesn't get saturated. But Josh has been working upstairs, and so at some point it's on our list of things to do. We have a big list of things to do, and it's always just a matter of like trying to figure out what's the priority. It hasn't been a huge issue, except for those plants aren't growing very quickly, and it's not that big of a deal. I've been hand watering. You can see the hose right there. Some of the beds I hand water, especially after I first direct seed. I come out here like this one, and I've been hand watering every day since I planted the basil seed and the lettuce seed in between my tomatoes as a little extra insurance to try to get better germination. And I do enjoy hand watering, so that's why it hasn't been higher on the list, because it kind of forces me to come out here and hand water, and I enjoy hand watering. It's nice that I don't have to hand water the entire garden, but I enjoy kind of coming out and watching the little seedlings that I put into the ground. And I did want to mention, I have been so enjoying not having landscape fabric in my garden beds. I think that I'm not going to use that in the growing season from here on out. One way I'm going to try to mitigate how many weeds are going to end up in this bed is by planting a bunch of lettuce and basil and using that as ground cover where the soil is bare. But you can tell in a lot of the beds already, like this one right here, this is the second snapdragon bed, that when we first planted out these snapdragons, there was a lot of soil that was exposed that could get really, really weedy. But as these plants have grown, they have kind of taken over and filled out the bed, so they are pushing out any weed competition. So that was what my hope was. That's one reason why I planted them so densely. This variety of snapdragon has not started blooming yet, but we've got pinks and yellows and whites all along the inside of this bed. And back here you can see, this is where I have tomatoes, and the tomatoes are starting to grow up and outpass the snapdragons, which is what I was hoping for, along with my two tomatillo plants that are right here in the middle. And they have a ton of flowers on them already. Tomatillo flowers are one of the biggest attractors of pollinators in my garden. I also threw in a pumpkin plant right there. We'll see if that pumpkin plant gets kind of grown over from the snapdragons, but I'm hoping it'll kind of quickly start growing out of the bed, and then it's not competing with the snapdragons too much. But that is one of my favorite beds there. And then we're gonna come over here. This is my hot pepper bed, and some random flowers and black bean pole beans, or actually I think these ones are the pinto beans that are growing along this back edge. We don't have them growing up to the trellis yet, but hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, they will be at the bottom of this trellis. I did throw in some pumpkin plants along this edge here. We have the Rebecca that we started together, just some hot pepper plants, flowers in here. This is a straw flower right here. This is nasturtium, lots of hot peppers. And we're actually starting to get some hot peppers on this plant. I have a lot of volunteer tomatoes. This was a tomato bed last year, and so I'm getting a lot of volunteer tomatoes. I just pull those. I'm gonna let those compost in place. And I'm excited about this bed. We've got more Rebecca here, and then along this edge here, I planted some more mini pumpkins, and I don't see any of those have germinated yet. The one problem I have with planting pumpkins directly, or pumpkin seeds directly into the ground, I should say, is that birds and mice or something, some sort of critter comes in and actually eats the seed out of the hole. And so if I don't see germination in the next week or two, I'm probably gonna assume that something got to those seeds, and I might plant some flowers or something along that edge. Last time we were in this bed together, this is the bed right below that hot pepper bed we were just in. I was showing you how sad this bed looked because these zinnia plants got pretty damaged from some cold weather. but they are looking absolutely fantastic now at this point. I did reseed in the areas where I had just loss that completely died, and I am starting to see some good germination. That's a weed. Where I reseeded, and these plants that were looking very, very sad have bounced back beautifully. So that is super exciting. I'm really looking forward to just massive bouquets, and I can already say that I'm already at that point. I have made so many snapdragon bouquets that have been stunning. I've been able to harvest ranunculus and the anemones, and it's just been so fun. From the zinnia bed, this is where we have sugar snap peas that are here along this trellis. I planted them the same day I planted the sugar snap peas on that trellis that was at the very beginning of the garden. And these are probably 4 or 5 times as tall. And we have been harvesting a ton of sugar snap peas from these plants already. I have not harvested enough to bring them inside and do anything with them, other than these are a fantastic snack, and every time we come out into the garden, we just have our fill of sugar snap peas from the garden. So here is just 5 alone. So maybe we're getting close to the point where I can start harvesting these and bringing them inside. I love to take these, blister them in extremely hot cast iron with some butter, salt, and pepper, and they're just so delicious. But as of now, they are just a garden snack, and we will enjoy them in the garden. So this is my second onion bed, and it looks like there's a big weed there that I'm gonna pull before those seeds get into my garden, that I planted carrots in amongst the onions, and the carrots are right in here, and they're looking fantastic. I did that last year and it was a huge success. The carrots grow into the ground, and they don't seem to inhibit the onion growth at all. So it's a great way to maximize your garden space to plant 2 things in one bed. Now this bed I'm gonna show you looks completely different than the other pumpkin bed. So this is my second pumpkin bed, and these plants are just massive. This is what I've been doing in this bed, just like the other bed. I come through and I try to tuck these plants to encourage them to grow straight out of this bed. And you can just see how it is working. So they're probably about a foot out of the bed at this point on this side, and well, this side, they are way more than a foot out of the bed. So what happens is I just have them grow out of the bed, down onto the ground, and then they grow into this walkway here, and they just expand, and the pumpkins actually grow on the path here instead of in the bed. And that's how I've been able to plant so many pumpkin plants in such a small space. But you do have to train them to grow the way you want them to grow. Like this one, oh my goodness, this one has a female pumpkin on it already. And I might have to train that one to go that way. Sometimes you can't rotate the plant once they get established. And then over here on this trellis, I tried to grow loofahs. They've died twice. So I threw in 2 pumpkin plants there. So maybe we'll get some pumpkins to grow up this trellis. But then I noticed yesterday or the day before, I can't remember when I was out here, 2 loofahs just germinated. So maybe we will get loofahs. I'm thinking at this point, it's probably too late in the season to actually get these loofahs to grow, produce fruit, and get something that we could actually harvest. I think that I might be able to get the plant to grow up the trellis, but to actually harvest and a dried loofah is probably a pipe dream at this point. But maybe I'll try again next year. So that is this garden at this point. It is taking off. I am so happy with the progress of how this garden is coming together. You and I have been working on getting this garden to this point for the last few months, and I am so happy to be at this point. I am just waiting for things to grow. So it's such a joy to go out there in the mornings and just watch things grow. That's all I do, is I go out there and I watch things grow. We have had quite a few harvests, but they've just been enjoyable little harvests. We don't have the craziness of harvest season yet. And this is probably my favorite time of the gardening season because it's relaxing, it's beautiful, it's encouraging to see things grow, and it's just a lot of fun. So now we're walking over to where we have our flowers planted and the bumblebees, or not bumblebees, the honeybees. So last time we were out in this area together, I cleaned up around these blueberry plants, and the blueberry plants are looking fantastic. It's going to be a beautiful blueberry harvest this year. And in here, we're starting to see quite a bit of germination. Now there are a lot of weeds in here, but there are a lot of zinnias that have come up. I do come out here pretty regularly and weed this area. We've got a lot of germination in those beds. This bed is the bed that I'm the most excited about because I planted a lot of cosmos in this bed. So cosmos are everywhere. This is a zinnia. There's sunflowers all throughout here. Here you can see really, really well. The cosmos are these like little frilly ones. The zinnias are the ones with the little round leaves. The sunflowers are the ones with these pointy leaves. And it's gonna be, those are all cosmos there. They're planted really close together, but I'm okay with that. I would love for this just to grow up and be just like this big, massive jungle of flowers in here. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what I want to do with this space next year. I think what I'm going to do is probably order from a local place, I don't know yet, some organic compost. And I think I'm going to expand this garden next year. It's going to be an in-ground garden. And this coming fall, I want to prepare it to be an in-ground garden. And I'm not exactly sure what my plans are, but I have a lot of plans. And I might even plant, I don't know, I was thinking it would be fun, depending on how my wheat experiment goes, it would be fun to grow a huge wheat patch over here because this is a flat area, so it'd be easier to grow it, but I'm not exactly sure. It depends on how well these flowers do. If these explode and are just a beautiful jungle of flowers, then maybe I will expand the flower patch over here. Only time will tell. We'll figure it out together. An update on the bees. They are doing fantastic. We have so enjoyed having the bees on our property. They have brought us so much joy, and we are just so excited that they are here. And I want to say thank you to everyone who gave us tips and tricks. So many of you guys are avid, experienced beekeepers, and you had a lot of really good information to tell us. They are starting to fill out those frames, which is great. Josh was able to get in there last week, and they are building their colony and their hive out, which has been super encouraging and fun to watch. This is a raspberry patch that did not produce any fruit for us last year. I need to take all of these broken and rotten pieces of wood to the dump. That's on our list of things to do. But just with a raspberry update, we have so much fruit on these plants this year. We usually don't harvest raspberries until mid to late July around here. So we've got a good month, a good solid month before we're going to be harvesting any raspberries, but they're looking fantastic. These plants are loaded with fruit, and we are going to actually, hopefully, as long as the birds don't eat them, we are going to get a beautiful raspberry harvest this year. Here are the final 2 beds that I planted out. Here you can really see there's quite a few sunflowers. These are probably, I don't know, 5 inches tall. I almost said 5 feet, but they're definitely not 5 feet, 5 inches tall. You can see the grass that's starting to pop up. So I've been going through and weeding these areas. I think one thing I want to do next year for this area, if I do put a garden in this area, is I want to use landscape fabric to prevent weeds, because this is an in-ground garden with grass that grows around it that we mow. And so grass clippings and seeds fall into the bed. I think I do want to do landscape fabric here as a way to control the weeds if I have this be a flower garden next year. But I'm still really trying to think through what I want to do here, if I want to expand this area and have this be a garden, because it's not irrigated either. So this area I do hand water. I think I originally said that I wasn't going to, and I was going to let nature take care of it. But we are now at the point, we had 5 or 6 days of rain. It wasn't even in the high was like 65. And from now moving forward, the weather is going to be in the mid 80s, and there's probably going to be no rain from now until September. I mean, we might get like 1 or 2 or 3 days here and there, but where we live, once summer hits, and I feel like this is the very first, I feel like yesterday was the first day of summer for us. We have a long spring that we don't get rain. So I think I'm gonna water this just because I've been enjoying this so much. It's been a fun thing to come out and hand water. So if I expand this into a more serious garden next year, then maybe we'll irrigate it. I don't know what my long-term plans are for that garden or even what we're gonna do next year for that garden space around the bees, but it's just really fun that you all gave me that idea to plant flowers because I'm having so much fun enjoying watching it grow. So I just grabbed a harvest basket because we actually had a couple things we need to harvest. I'm over here by the chickens. I figured while I was at it this morning, I might as well see if there's any eggs for us. They are just getting up. I think I actually hear one of them in the nesting box. Yep, there's one in there. No eggs yet. Hi, sweet girl. I'll leave you be. There's probably a couple eggs underneath her. It's been 2 days since I've collected eggs, and for some reason, their absolute favorite place to lay eggs is in that one particular nesting box. And so I'm gonna go inside. I'm gonna bring in our little harvest. I mean, this is not enough to survive on, but it is fun to see the very beginning stages of the harvest coming in, and we will enjoy this for breakfast. These are our other blueberry plants here, and they have quite a bit of fruit on them as well. We have 11 blueberry plants along this ridge. These 3 right here, I just planted this year. We had some other bushes there that died over the winter that were more of a landscape bush that didn't have any real function. And so I figured since they died and I've been enjoying these blueberry plants here and they're doing so well that I might as well replace the 3 that died with more blueberry plants. So time will tell how well these do and if the deer eat my blueberries or the birds. At our last home, we had 25 blueberry plants and we had deer, but they never bothered my blueberry plants. So I'm hoping the deer don't bother these blueberry plants and we'll get a harvest. Last year, we didn't harvest anything off them. They were not established enough. I think they were, trauma from the transplant process, but I think this year is gonna be the first year we're gonna get a harvest from those plants. I'm coming back to come inside to make a pot of coffee for the morning, and I wanted to show you this last green stalk here. So I just did a huge harvest off this parsley, and it's actually in the freeze dryer right now. This is kind of my herb green stalk, and it is looking really great. I want to make some sort of chicken dish with this tarragon. I have never cooked with tarragon before that I know of. I'm just rubbing it. Maybe I should just break a little piece off. Smell it. Oh, there's one of my honeybees. My allergies are pretty strong right now. I don't really smell a ton coming from it, but I know that I want to make some sort of chicken dish with that. So friend, thank you so much for being in my garden today as we did this June garden tour. I am so excited for this year's garden. It was a little bit of a rocky start once we started putting things in the ground because we did have things die. But that's just what happens, at least in my garden, your garden. Maybe you don't have things die, but I have things die. And if it wasn't for me going out and putting more seed in the ground and just trying and trying, we wouldn't be where we are today. But persistence, determination has gotten us to this point. And sunshine, the sun is starting to come out. I think that these plants, honestly, I think in the next week are going to explode because like I said, we just had a ton of rain and now it's going to be sunny. And whenever we get a little bout of rain and then sun, that's when things start to just go crazy. And I can already tell you things are starting to go crazy. So I'm just so excited that we're here, we're in harvest. It might be a slow, humble harvest to start, but that is proof of concept. We just need to hopefully have this continue and we are going to enjoy the rest of the summer. So thank you for being here. If you want to watch more of my videos, I'll pop some videos you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I'm just going to close this gate so that I can go get my dogs and let them out. And we are going to enjoy today. We're going to be making some cooking stuff later today, so stay tuned. So if you want to watch more videos between now and my next upload, I'll put those here. If you're new, please consider subscribing. If you've been here before, thank you again for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I can't wait to see you next time.